follow the recipe for wellness.
Yes.
Take the antidote to fear. Do the hacks to relax when you're, it's emotional first aid. Don't panic. Your emotions, what you resonate at, affects everything that's happening right now. And you don't have to go out and physically change anything. You can do that by changing from within. So find the peace within. And if you meditate, when you've done your hot or cold, and then you're relaxing and you're finding that balance point, then once you've had that peace within, you'll know what to do. You'll know what the next right thing to do is. And then just do the next right thing.
Welcome back to another episode of Lachlan Saves the World. I hope you're doing phenomenal. As always, I want to thank you. I want to send my love out to you. I have so much gratitude that you're tuning in and checking out this podcast. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it can bring you a ton of value. If you're new to the show, it's an honor to have you listen in. This is a platform where we seek out the amazing teachers and people in the world to extract valuable tools, tips, methods, knowledge, ideas, insights, education that I believe is very valuable and that we can integrate into our lives and transform our internal world and go deep on transforming ourselves so we can grow and we can flourish. Because when we do that, a beautiful consequence is transforming, changing, altering the external world, the environment, and saving Gaia, saving our Mother Earth. Although a catch-22, I somehow think that she's also here to save us. She's given us this learning lab so we can evolve individually and collectively. So it's much more of a co-creation. And I'm assisting her in helping humanity evolve and grow. So yeah, I want to thank you for joining in on this journey. In today's episode, I had such a great time talking with Marc Cohen. He is what I would call a wellness wizard. I mean, the width and depth of this man's knowledge base is extraordinary. I mean, his knowledge on human health is incredible. He studied Western medicine, physiology, psychological medicine. He has PhDs in Chinese medicine and biomedical engineering. Just to name some, he's working on so many different projects and really trying to spark. Well, I call him the wellness wizard, so I would say he's casting a wellness pandemic. He wants worldwide wellness. He wants extreme wellness. And I say that to the absolute 100% fullest. This man wants worldwide wellness. He is so fascinating. He's been called an apocalyptimus. What is an apocalyptimus? So he knows an apocalypse is arising, but has zero fear about it and looks at it as an opportunity to evolve. So he's very optimistic about an apocalypse, which is exactly the perception and the mindset I fucking love. Because many people being caught up in that narrative and the fear and being brainwashed and programmed. But fuck that. Like, let's create the most beautiful world that we possibly can. Worldwide wellness. Like, who doesn't want worldwide wellness? A wellness pandemic. So some of the projects he's working on, I want to mention these because they are amazing. And if you are interested, I would love for you to check them out and get involved. So he is in Melbourne currently, which is obviously being very heavily targeted in terms of this pandemic. They're continuing lockdown. The police are just going wild out there, really controlling the population of Melbourne. So I think it's the perfect spot for him to be, being this apocalyptimist, being so optimistic about pandemics and fear-based experiences and events. He's decided to create what he calls a protestival. So it's the fun way of doing a protest, rather than getting together and it's all angry and low vibrational, I guess. And he's taking that positive side of it and creating a protestival. So you can go to protestival.com, check it out, join in. They do music and documentaries and all sorts of things. I think it's 8 p.m. every night and 11 a.m. Every morning. I can't exactly remember the times, but check it out. And if you want to contribute and help out, I believe you can just find that on the website. He's also working on a kombucha and water filtration. I mean, the man is just on a mission. And you can hear that in him, and you can see that in his work. I mean, he's just such an extraordinary person, and it was such an honor to explore with him today all sorts of different topics. I really tried to squeeze the 2 hours that I had with him. I tried to get everything out of him. And I mean, we dived into, how he's approaching this, considering that he's been planning for this moment his entire life. He's been waiting for a pandemic since he was 10 years old. So this is 50-something or 40-something years in the making. We talked about water, the intelligence of water, emotions in water, bathing in water, drinking clean water. Like, what's the point in a vaccine, a drug, a supplement, a mask, if simply the water quality in your body isn't healthy? They're not going to work if the foundational, the bedrock basics are not attended and are healthy. And the beautiful thing with Marc is, at the end of all this scientific research, he creates art, and he creates art through poems, which are very easy to remember and very easy to digest and implement into your life. So he does share with us quite a few poems, which are beautiful. We talked about the microbiome, viruses. So I really wanted to give you guys an understanding of what viruses actually are. I think we've done a very good job of anthropomorphizing viruses and giving them a character and these certain traits, when in fact they're not really what they seem to be. They're like codes. They're just like words. And we have a microvirome. We have hundreds and thousands and probably millions and trillions of viruses in our body and all around us all the time. So understanding viruses, and then understanding that this coronavirus can easily be melted through heat. So if you go into a sauna, if you have a hot bath, if you take the right approach with heat, most of these viruses can easily just melt and be deactivated. So it's a bit odd that all the saunas are closed in the world, don't you think? But yeah, we just explored wellness, this current time, and where does Marc see the future of humanity, and his future very much aligns with mine, and it is perfection. It is divine, and I can't wait to watch this man continue to express his work and express himself and create all these beautiful projects and just everything he's doing in the world. It was an honor to speak with him. If you enjoy this conversation, I would highly appreciate it if you subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes that come out. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. Share it with your friends, your family. Share it on social media. Take notes, journal about it, because we went on an exploration in today's episode. I love you guys, and enjoy. Welcome back to Lachlan Saves the World. Today I'm joined with Marc Cohen. When I think of Marc, I picture a poetic wellness water wizard casting a wellness pandemic. This man has an extraordinary depth and width of knowledge on human health. He studied Western medicine, physiology, psychological medicine, and PhDs in Chinese medicine and biomedical engineering, just to name a few. Mark feels he was born for crises, for chaotic moments, for pandemics. He's been called an apocalyptimus. So he's an apocalypse. So he knows an apocalypse is arising, but has no fear about it and looks at it as an opportunity to evolve. A lover for the incredible and intelligent life that is water. And I think he very much embodies the quote by Bruce Lee said, "Be formless, shapeless like water." I feel Mark really does flow like water, especially with understanding and adapting to our world's current toxic conditions and crises. I'm immensely grateful for you, Mark, and to connect with you today. It's such an honor. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, thank you, Lachlan. What an introduction. I'm happy to be with you.
So like I said, I really feel like you're flowing with water with everything going on. What has it been like for you watching this pandemic unfold? Having been prepared for this very moment in a sense, how are you perceiving what's going on? And what's the experience been like for you?
Wow, big question. It feels like my whole life's been leading to this moment. As you said, when I was in primary school in the early 1970s, I read the book, The Limits to Growth. And in that book, there's a graph that shows the population increasing exponentially, pollution increasing exponentially, resource utilization decreasing exponentially. And on a limited planet, that couldn't continue. And they actually predicted really accurately that the whole world would, Western civilization would collapse in around 2020. And I figured that would be right in the middle of my life, which it is. I'm 56 now, and at the height of my sort of career. And, in those days, that was, I was in primary school in the days of duck and cover, duck under the desk when the nuclear bombs go off sort of thing. Yeah. And I always expected that, humanity was either going to, obliterate itself, or we were going to go to the next level of evolution and, reach a stable human population on Earth. And a whole new reorganization of society, and what I believed would be worldwide wellness. And I figured, all my life, rather than sort of fight what I don't want and battle the apocalypse, I would work and try and create what I do want, which is worldwide wellness. So I made a decision early on, and I also figured wellness is more fun. Being a protester and fighting what I didn't want, that's hard work. Well, for me, some people love that. They had that fire and that warrior spirit in them. But for me, I love fun. I love water. I want to be bathing and skiing and snowboarding and, hanging out in hot springs. So I decided, I'll become a wellness expert. And I spent literally 38 years at university doing that. So I started off in medicine, Western medicine, because I figured Western medicine would teach me about the body and the mind, and how I could have the most fun and be the most fulfilled. And fun has really been a driving compass for my life. And went for a medical degree. After the first 3 years of that, I realized that they were teaching me a lot about illness, but not much about wellness. So I took a year off and did an honors degree in physiology and psychological medicine, studying pain. And at that time, I wanted to study pleasure, but they wouldn't let me. They didn't think that was a serious subject for medical school. That was, in the mid-1980s, before positive psychology was even a thing. So I did a whole, honors thesis on pain from the Eastern and Western perspective, and also from a mind and body perspective. And that introduced me to acupuncture and Eastern medicine and endorphins. And there's a whole nother way of thinking about health that's from a Eastern preventative spiritual perspective. And that got me really fascinated. And I thought, okay, I want to blend both of those. So I went back and did my 4th year of medicine to understand clinical hospital work. Then took another 3 years off and did a PhD in Chinese medicine, and realized, that my whole life is about integration, about balancing things. So I figured I'd want to balance Eastern and Western medicine. So I went back and finished my medical degree. So I had a, Western medical degree and a PhD in Chinese medicine. And then I started practicing, but then also throughout that practice, I knew that, technology was going to be a big part of our future, and that understanding, I had this whole conceptual theory about entropy and information theory, which I used in my Chinese medicine PhD. And I got sort of, not sidetracked, but invited to do a PhD in electrical and computer systems engineering, which was all about how the body works as an information system. And I was really into information systems and pathways, and the people who study that are computer systems engineers. So I did a second PhD in computer systems engineering, and then got down the route of health and well-being and lifestyle. So I went to a health retreat, an organic farm health retreat called Ontos in the early 1990s, and got woken up to, this was just after, actually it was the year before I finished my medical degree. And they introduced me to what was then the Dean Ornish program. And this was a lifestyle program that was proven to reverse heart disease. And it was very inexpensive. It was just, low-fat vegetarian diet, daily exercise, just walking, social support and relaxation and meditation. And that reversed heart disease. And it got me questioning, why in medicine are we spending like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on bypass operations to, take a vein from your leg, put it across a blocked artery in your heart, and then repeat that every 10 years when it blocks up? Why aren't we doing lifestyle change? And where's the industry that's about, relax, exercise, eat good food, and share your feelings? And then, the penny dropped. Well, the $40,000 dropped. Okay, if you do heart surgery, you get 40 grand. If you do lifestyle, it's not very. There's not a big industry around that. So I started. So I was working as a GP. I was working in medical informatics, and I started creating electives for medical students at Monash University. And all these so I think I was the first person to formally teach acupuncture to medical students. That was in the early 1990s. And then I created a whole lot of electives on lifestyle and complementary medicine and humour and healing and Aboriginal spirituality and risk management, where we took students rafting and rock climbing and learned, teaching them about risk, and really embracing positive lifestyle. And at the same time, in the mid-1990s, I got involved with a festival scene. So there's a whole lot. Melbourne's the festival capital of the world. We have a lot of alternative festivals as well as the mainstream ones. And I went to Confest, which is this big conference, sort of big hippie conference festival, and I've been involved with that for the last 25 years as sort of the Dr Marc. That's how I got branded Dr Marc, because there was another Dr Marc there who was Yoga Marc, who did the yoga, and I was Dr Marc who did the doctoring. But I could sort of experiment with a whole lot of alternative practices. And then in the mid-1990s, I got introduced to the spa industry by Horst Reichelbacher. He was the founder of Aveda Corporation, and he was a hairdresser who went to India and realized the environment was important and set up an organic hair care, company. And we became good friends, and he invited me to America and introduced me to the spa industry. And that was the industry that's all about relax, exercise, eat good food, and share your feelings. And I sort of came into the spa industry, eyes wide open, saying, "Wow, this is a whole industry," and realised I was actually a leader in the industry because I was already talking about how feeling good is good for you, and the power of immunity, the power of positive lifestyle practices to boost health and boost immunity and boost your resilience to disease. So that was a really great meeting for me to learn about the spa industry. And then in the early 2000s, I got introduced to a whole other level where a good friend of mine now, Ingo Schwader, he was the first global spa director for a 5-star hotel chain. He was working for Mandarin Oriental Hotels. They were the first 5-star hotel chain to take their spas into their operation and make them global. And he wanted to teach his practitioners to do not just beauty and massage and pedicure and manicure. He wanted wellness practitioners, and he looked around the world for who teaches wellness practitioners. And a lot of people who had heard about my work with Aveda and my work with integrative medicine, because I've been involved with integrative medicine all through the 90s, pointed him to me, and we became friends. And I set up a program. And actually, right at that time, right in the turn of the millennia, just after year 2000, I was invited to go from Monash University, where I was the sort of alternative doctor in the conservative medical school, and I got offered a job as a full tenured professor as the conventional doctor in an alternative medical school at RMIT University. And RMIT taught chiropractic, osteopathy, and Chinese medicine. And they offered me a job as full professor to be head of that department, the Department of Complementary Medicine that ran osteopathy, Chinese medicine, and chiropractic. So then I was like the conventional doctor, but that allowed me to be the bridge between the two sort of disciplines, and also to create a wellness program. So I actually developed a Masters of Wellness program, which was the first in its world. It was a fully online program, and really made all the top wellness experts in the world my friends and my peers. And I've done that over the years where, and it was a really good strategy where I ran conferences, holistic health conferences. And for the last 15 years, I was president of the Integrative Medicine Association in Australia in the early 2000s. And for the last 15 years, I've been on the board of the Global Wellness Summit, which is also in this big high-level conference with all these top wellness practitioners. So I've made them my peers and learned a lot from them. And written books. I wrote the first textbook on the spa industry, called Understanding the Global Spa Industry. I wrote one of the major textbooks on herbs and supplements, Herbs and Natural Supplements, an evidence-based guide, which grew from 400 pages in the first edition to 800 pages in the second edition to 1,200 pages in the third edition. Now the fourth edition, 1,600 pages. So that was my education about herbs and supplements, because they didn't teach me that in medical school. So I've sort of built up, this knowledge and research, and I've done lots and lots of research. I've published more than 100 peer-reviewed papers. But unlike a lot of professors and a lot of academics who go really deep in one area, I've gone really wide. So I've published papers on organic food and nutrition and herbal medicine, but also on acupuncture, on electrotherapeutic devices, on detoxification, on yoga. I've done a lot of yoga research, on meditation, done hot spring research, sauna research. So all the fun stuff, research on health retreats. So I've done a lot of this sort of fun research, which has allowed me to travel the world and visit all these amazing wellness locations and make the wellness experts my peers and my friends and my supporters, and identify with the industries that I figured we'd need when the apocalypse came. Because how are we going to live well in the world? So studying about permaculture and what are the techniques that we need as a individual, but also what do we need as a community to recreate the world that's going to be well? And all that time, I mean, when I was head of the Integrative Medicine Association here for some years, I've been aware of a lot of dark forces, against alternative medicine. And I've always actually managed to walk that tightrope. Because very often I was the expert that the television would call up to defend natural medicine when the pharmaceutical industry would try and, denigrate it. Because I'd written the textbook on herbs and supplements, and I've written all these peer-reviewed articles. I've always walked that bridge between alternative and conventional medicine. And but rather than sort of fight vaccines or fight fluoride or chlorination and all of this, I always focused on, what do I want? How do I work and create that? Fully expecting that around now, the whole world would turn to mush. And so at the end of 2018, I actually quit my job at the university, which is a pretty radical thing to do, because when you've got a tenured professorship, you're sort of set for life. You're at the top of the academic pay scale, and it's great work. But I realised there was a lot more I wanted to do. And that marked 38 years at university. And like any good Aussie guy, when you finish university, you take a gap year. So last year in 2019, I took a gap year and travelled the world, and I ran a few retreats in Bali and New Zealand. I went to a lot of conferences and festivals and had a great time, thinking that in 2000, the job that I'm meant to do in the world is really starting. And it is now. And this year, since the pandemic's hit, I've been working flat out the whole time at home. And I mean, I'm creating a lot of businesses, like my own businesses, although none of them have made money yet, but I've been doing a lot of groundwork and thinking, what's the biggest contribution I can make to the world? And it always comes down to water. So my first business was actually a water filter business that doesn't just make water filters, it makes what I call beautiful water systems. So it's water that's filtered, structured, balanced, blessed, and it can be given away for free. And if you're giving away filtered, structured, balanced, blessed water for free, then anyone selling plastic water bottles near you will go out of business, because you're giving away a high quality product for free. And there are 500 billion plastic water bottles made every single year. And that's just, for me, that's just crazy. And, and it's all the same players, all the big people who own the pharmaceutical companies, who own the media companies, who are controlling the world right now. They're promoting plastic water bottles, and it's, I'm going to subvert that. So my first company is a water company. I have an education business at the Extreme Wellness Institute and the Extreme Wellness Academy. And I run retreats, so these extreme wellness retreats. And with extreme wellness, it's about going to the limits of your physiology. So you go from, I talk about, you filter and flush your bladder, you feast and fast your bowel, you pant and hold your breath, you do hot and cold with your body, and you do everything you can in flow, and then you don't do anything at all with your brain. So you go to the extremes with each of the parts of your physiology. And so they're your channels of elimination: your bladder, your bowel, your breath, your body, and your brain. So when you go to the extremes, then you can find that balance, that bliss point in the middle. And that's what my life's been about, going to the extremes, but finding that bliss point in the middle. And right now, I've never felt busier. And just in the last 2 days, and this has sort of come upon me really unexpectedly, although not quite, because in the late 1990s, I was running festivals, healing arts festivals, to bring natural medicine students and Western medicine students together. So I've run festivals, I've run conferences, and in the last few days, I had this epiphany that, I've seen these protests that's happening in Melbourne, because Melbourne, we're under the most draconian restrictions than any other city in the world right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're feeling really oppressed. But I don't feel compelled to protest, because I don't want to go against what I don't want. And I figure, how do I turn that into something that I do want? And the currency of wellness is connection. So I want people to connect with each other. And I figured, how do we do that? Well, festivals do that. Dancing does that. Music does that. Connecting at that heart level does that. So how can we do that in a safe way? So I came up with this concept of a protestival, which is a protest festival that would happen online. But 3 days after having it, we just launched about a few hours ago. So in the last 3 days, with no organizational structure, no money, just attracting the people that I need, we've built a website, we've created playlists, we've got APRA licenses, we've got a Facebook page, an Instagram page. All this is all being done spontaneously, and we're planning to play music for an hour twice a day at 11 past 11 and 8 past 8 for twice a day, and broadcast it and then live stream it. So every speaker in the city or in the world can become part of our PA system.
Wow.
And we're sort of, it's like we're taking this big leap and we're building our wings as we fall, because, there was a few bugs and we're trying to get to synchronize with the sound. But so now I'm running this protestival, but doing it sort of, it just happens to me. It's just happening right now. As well as, one of the other things I'm being really active at the moment is advocating for bathing. And a few years ago, when I realized that the cheapest, the simplest, and the most effective health intervention on earth is clean water. And no one disputes that. If they spent the same money on clean water as they did on vaccines, we wouldn't need vaccines for anything, and there wouldn't be any infectious disease.
Yeah, 100%.
It's really that crazy. So a few years ago, I've got really powerful friends that own hot springs and own spa companies and do great things. So we created the Bathe the World Foundation, which aims to bathe the world in beautiful water. So providing water to the world is really important for me. And because I've done research on saunas, and I've worked with Wim Hof, and I've done lectures on the science behind the Wim Hof method, I've realized that hot and cold bathing is an incredible boost to your immune system. It's really, really powerful, and it's cheap, and it's simple, and you can do it without medical supervision. You can do it without a prescription, and you can do it at home. And when you do that, you boost your immune system. So right at the start of the pandemic, when I first heard about it, I started posting about this, how you could actually boost your immune system through hot and cold therapies. And I was amazed. I got trolled and I got censored. And I was talking about, proper research, and that got me really angry. But that anger turned into action, because I said, okay, people are saying, people are calling me irresponsible. No responsible doctor would say you could boost your immune system with heat. And I said, hey, look, I know the research. So I wrote a peer-reviewed article, and it took me, a month or two on my own time. And I actually had to pay, because now I had to put it on a platform that was peer-reviewed platform, but you end up having to pay to do that. So I did that, and it's called Turning Up the Heat on COVID-19. Heat is a therapeutic option. And I summarized all the research, and it's amazing, because for the last 600 million years, every fish, every reptile, every bird, every mammal, and every human has used heat when they have a viral infection. And every human, since we've had fire and hot, people have gone into hot springs, have used heat to boost their immunity and to overcome respiratory viral infections. When winter comes and sunlight's not as strong, and the food is not as fresh, and also when your nose cools down, the viruses can penetrate more easily. When there's cold, dry air, the nasal barrier, your first line of defense against a viral infection is your skin, and for respiratory viruses, your nasal mucosa. And in winter, when that gets dried out and cold, that's when the viruses can penetrate. So keeping that warm and moist is a really great barrier. But then also, heat will directly kill a virus. And we know that 55 degrees, so even less than 15 minutes, will make a coronavirus or any respiratory virus just melt. In fact, they're using that at the moment for sterilizing police cars in America. they've got this program with it. The inside of the police car is heated to 55 degrees, and they know that no virus can survive that. And in a sauna, it's 70 degrees. I've been in saunas 110 degrees. So there's no virus that can survive that. And I'm being sort of horrified that pretty much all the saunas in the world have been closed down.
Yeah.
Even though they're pretty much the safest place you can possibly be. So, I wrote this peer-reviewed article, and I've been advocating for that. Then I wrote a position statement saying that hydrothermal centres that offer steam rooms and saunas and bathing and hot springs, etc., should be essential services, and they should be kept open during a pandemic. And it's been published on the Global Wellness Institute. I'm on their hydrothermal initiative and their hot spring initiative. Femtech, which is this quite established climatotherapy and balneotherapy association in Europe, which is sort of the hot spring and climate therapy spa association in Europe. They've been around for almost 100 years. They've published that. They've translated that into Russian and Chinese. And in those cultures where they have saunas and hot springs, they get it. But and we've said that document's gone to the Australian government, it's gone to the UK government, it's gone to the American government. No one's really acted on it, and the saunas are remaining shut. The beaches have been closed. Hydrothermal centres have been closed, which just doesn't make any sense to me. So I've been really advocating for people what can they do at home. And as you said, so this is a big rant, but
let it out.
It's a long story.
Hey everybody, so as we know, humanity is going through a radical transformation. We are taking a collective step in a new direction, and being healthy to flow with these times has never been more important. As me and Mindy are talking about today, in Chinese medicine, one of the ways in which they like to become resilient against fear and stress to avoiding the pollutants in our now toxic environment is using medicinal herbs and mushrooms. That's why, as a part of my nutrition, sleep, and exercise foundation, I also add in and supplement with the magical medicinal mushrooms. Now, I get these intelligent mushrooms from my favorite Australian organic medicinal mushroom and superfood company, T-Lixer. And as we know, fungi has an incredible intelligence and ability to fix our human systems. They contain an amazing holistic array of health benefits like reducing stress, revitalizing life force energy, boosting immunity, supporting our three brains, the head, brain, the heart, and the gut, increasing the lungs' ability to uptake oxygen, increasing libido, boosting digestion, can help with anxiety, upgrade your sleep quality and quantity, and so much more. I always stay stocked on the Fantastic Four, reishi, lion's mane, cordyceps, and chaga, but they also have many other divine products I really enjoy. Check out telixir.com. That's TEELIXIR.com and use Lachlan 10 lowercase LACHLAN10 at checkout for a discount across the board. Get these medicinal mushrooms into your life and allow them to work with you to revitalize and rejuvenate your life and maximize your potential. Would love to hear your feedback. Let's get back into the show.
And I've been trying to get positive messages out there. And again, my whole life, I've written 100 peer-reviewed studies, I've written textbooks, and now I'm trying to condense all my knowledge into bite-sized chunks that people can digest. And it's been coming out as poetry. And I never really I'd never thought of myself as a poet. And actually, I've got friends now who are turning that into songs. So I've got 2 songs of my poems that have just been out there. And one of them, I guess the briefest one, I won't recite them all here, but the briefest one's called the 10 Hacks to Relax.
Yes.
And I came up with that when I was teaching people to go into an ice bath, because when you're in an ice bath, it reproduces the body chemistry and the breathing pattern of trauma. Because when you go into an ice bath, you start to have like this panic and anxiety attack. And that's a fight and flight response. And when you're in fear, when you're in that fight and flight response, your immune system is depressed. And that's designed that way because when you're fighting for your life in a battle, or you're running away from a tiger, running for your life, you don't want to waste energy digesting food or healing wounds.
Yeah, you can't have sex getting chased by a tiger.
That's right. You know, all your energy is directed outwards to propel you away from that danger or to fight that danger. So it actively turns off your immune system. So I was really keen to get people to stimulate their rest and digest, their parasympathetic nervous system, which is, you know, where you nurture yourself, where you would do fine finger movements, you know, you sew and write, or you know, mend your fishing nets or whatever you're doing when you're safe in your cave. And that's when you flirt, and that's when you sleep, and that's when you eat and digest. So when you go into an ice bath, I was saying, how do we activate the parasympathetic nervous system? And then I came up with these 10 activities that end up being a poem. And the activities are very simple. It's touch all your fingers, wiggle your toes, soften your stomach, breathe through your nose, sigh, smile, swallow, sing, la 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 la, flutter your eyelids, and focus within. And all of those 10 activities tell your body you're in parasympathetic mode. They replicate eating, doing fine finger movements. I mean, you're not doing weaving and stuff when you're running away from a target, yeah? But if you do those 10 activities, anytime you're scared, anxious, upset, or in pain, you can relax on demand. So I call that emotional first aid. And there's a lot of people who need emotional first aid right now because there are people being traumatized all over the world. So that was one of the poems I came up with. I'd sort of had it just before the pandemic started. That was, you know, but that was a really useful poem. And then we turned that into an animated video and a song. So that's, people can go to my blog at extremewellness.co and look at that. Or I think it's on YouTube as well, The Hacks to Relax. So that was, you know, I was trying to get that message out there. And then I was thinking of all the different activities you can do at home that don't need any money and don't need any equipment and don't need any training, that would activate your parasympathetic load, that you could do as part of your lifestyle. So I came up with another poem, and I'm still not happy with the name. I'm calling it the Slow Down Shuffle. But this poem ended up being a literature review. So in one poem, there are 50 different activities. And if you go to my blog, if you click on any of those 50 activities, you get the reference, the scientific reference, or the review article, the systematic review that documents the research behind those activities. And I mean, it's only a couple of minutes, not even a minute or so. So I'll get that up and I'll recite that for you, because it's such an easy thing you can do. So these are all the activities you can do, and I call it, these are the things you can do to go from wired and tired, which is, you know, sympathetic mode, to chilled and fulfilled, which is parasympathetic mode. And I mean, there are obvious activities, but they are, you know, hold someone's hand, gaze into their eyes, go barefoot in nature, bask in sunrise, choose a dance partner, go find your groove, do Tai Chi or yoga, mindfully move, share a massage, enjoy healing touch, focus on one thing and don't think too much, make time for a hobby, play chess, fly a kite, make use of your hands, draw, paint, sew or write, help someone in need, donate to a cause, play games, meditate, read stuff from bookstores, turn off your screens, get a good sleep, declutter, spark joy, love what you keep, dig around in a garden, pick up a guitar, slip into a bathtub, sauna or spa, care for a pet, take up a sport, go on vacation and make your home a resort, lie in a hammock, release pent-up stress, relax and do nothing, and then do even less. Say a prayer, chant a mantra, follow your bliss. Laugh out loud, share a joke, give someone a kiss, say a prayer, chant a mantra, follow your bliss. So those activities, you can do them all at home. You can make them part of your lifestyle, and that will help allay fear, boost your immunity, and actually bring joy and fun to your life. So these are the messages I'm trying to get out there. And just last week I was thinking, you know, because fear is such an overwhelming thing, and fear is the weapon they're using against us.
Yeah.
I mean, they've weaponized our own bodies and they've weaponized fear. So I'm thinking, how do we overcome fear? And I was, you know, toying with the, you know, going through, you know, what's the research say, and, you know, and it is these parasympathetic nervous system activities. But then this other poem just popped out in a matter of minutes. And so I call this the antidote to fear. And it's foster love of poetry, express yourself through dance, fill your life with fun and joy, friendship and romance. Focus on the world you want, be the change you want to see. Spread goodwill to all you meet, live fearless and free. So these are the messages I'm working on. I've got a whole lot more poetry. I've got children's books. My first illustrated children's books. So, because after writing 100 peer-reviewed papers, you realise it doesn't make a difference. We know how to be well. I can give you another poem. The Recipe for Wellness. That's another really simple poem. So this Recipe for Wellness. Wellness is simple. It's bathe in beautiful water, prepare delicious food, make the most of every breath, dance through every mood. Tend the soil beneath your feet, embrace sunshine from above, share your gifts with all the world, fill your life with love. Mm. So it's not complicated.
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
That's so beautiful. No, it's so impressive to see the amount you're really putting out there, the amount you're expressing out to the world, from poems to the research you're doing. It's truly quite spectacular to see, and I'm so grateful that you at the end of everything you're finding is like more artwork in terms of poems and whatnot. The way at the end of every equation you're finding a poem, in a sense. It's so beautiful the way that works and the way it comes out.
What surprises me very often, and I was born at this incredible bridge in time. The timing of my birth was right at this bridge. I was born at 20th of March, right about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, in 1964, and that's 5 and 6 on a Friday afternoon. Is right the border between midnight and midday. It's border between the weekday and the weekend. It's on March 20th is the autumn equinox. So it's the border of summer and winter. March 20th is the border of the zodiac of the Pisces and Aries, that end in the start of the zodiac. And 1964 was the end of the baby boomers and the start of the X generation. Mm. So I was born at this really bridging point in time. And when I was born, we hadn't gone to the moon yet. All the computing system in the world alive when I was born is less than what I carry around in my pocket right now. There were less than 2 billion people in the world when I was born.
Yeah, wow.
So I've enjoyed this whole, big rise. These last 50 years, 56 years, have been an incredible explosion of humanity, but also of toxicity. And I've done a lot of research and I've been really concerned about the toxicity in the world. So, I've come up with these 10 toxic truths and researched the toxic products and how can you detoxify. And it's, so blending the science with the that comes out as poetry, where you put some science into poetry and suddenly it's beyond both. So when I get in touch with my, who I really am, that's what I find when I'm really creative.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's actually a good segue into my next question, because a question I like to ask and explore with all my guests is, in getting to know who they are a little deeper, is I'm wondering, what were your religious or spiritual beliefs growing up? If that was something you were exposed to or thought about, and if you could encapsulate from your expression, what is your current spiritual or religious philosophy?
I believe we're all gods. I believe we're all infinite beings of consciousness. But when I was brought up, my parents, they're both passed now. My father was from Egypt. He was from Spanish descent, from a very royal family in Spain. He was from the Doma Bravanel family that sort of funded Christopher Columbus, and they were the scholars and merchants.
Interesting.
And my mother was from Czechoslovakia, and she had this blessed life where she came to Australia before the Holocaust. So all her family perished in the Holocaust. They came and met in Melbourne, and my father was he was traditional. He wasn't religious, so I was brought up in a Jewish traditional background. But I was taught that I was a Kohanim. So my name's Cohen, and I'm descended from the high priest. I'm a direct descendant of Aaron on my paternal line. So that's, I was told I was special because I'm a Kohanim. And every Passover, we'd have a Pesach, traditional sort of Passover meal. And we were told, when our forefathers left Egypt. Well, my father left Egypt. So I felt that really personally, because my father left Egypt to come to the free land. And so I actually felt this real connection with, I had some role, and the Jewish people have a role in the next phase of humanity. And they talk about the Messianic, the age of the Messiah is going to come. And I never thought about that religiously, but I thought, oh, yeah, we are about to enter a whole new age, the age of Aquarius, the end of times, the rapture, whatever you want to call it, the end of the Mayan calendar. So I've always acknowledged that. And that's when I read The Limits to Growth when I was about 10 or 12. It came out in 1972. I can't remember how old I was, but I mean, I would have been, anywhere between 8 and 12 when I read it. It really hit home that, yeah, we are going to have this total restructure of civilization, or we're all going to die.
Hmm.
And I figured if we're all going to die, there's no point harping on that.
Yeah.
And so my belief, if you call it, I've sort of developed this and cultivated this. I call it pronoia, and it's the opposite of paranoia.
Yeah.
So paranoia is when you think everyone's out to get you and there's nothing you can do. Well, pronoia is the belief that the whole universe is planning to make you happy. There's nothing you can do about it. Whatever happens, it's for your benefit, and even if it seems bad, it's actually good. So I've actually adopted that as my belief system, and you realize it's not true. Like pronoia and paranoia are both delusional, because the universe isn't out to hurt you and the universe isn't out to help you. The universe just is.
Yeah.
But I figure if you're going to be in the world of delusion, you may as well consciously choose your delusion. So I decided to consciously choose my delusion. If I'm going to be deluded, well, I think everyone's out to get me and the whole world's terrible and we're all going to die. I mean, that's just as valid. I think it's a coin toss. And I think it probably still is. But why not believe the whole universe is out to help me? All these hardships are actually to overcome and make me feel great, and to spur us on to greater things. And there's a saying that a kite flies highest when it's got a strong wind against it. So all these objections in your life are actually just lifting you up. So, and if you take that attitude of pronoia, whatever comes your way is just going to lift you up, well, then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's a lot more fun.
Absolutely.
So that's my attitude to life. That I think the apocalypse is upon us. We could end up obliterating ourselves. We could end up under total tyranny, but I choose to believe that the other side of that coin is we're going to enter, and we're on the brink of paradise. I really think we're on the cusp of a whole new world that's just more wonderful than our wildest imagination.
For sure. So
that's what I work towards. That's what I focus on. That's what I try and put out there, and by reducing people's fear and saying there is, and I'm frustrated that not many. Even all these people trying to awaken people to all the shit fuckery that's going on in the world, often they don't give a positive, powerful vision for what can happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm trying to do. How can we? And I try and work with people and talk to people that have these powerful, positive visions for the future. So I'm doing that with my businesses, with the water filters. I've just created another company which is making living probiotic kombucha vinegars.
Yum.
And these companies, and this company is I partner with an amazing solar powered organic kombucha company. But these kombucha vinegars, they don't need any refrigeration. There's no sugar or there's no alcohol. But you can have it as a starter culture, buy it only once, feed it with sweet tea, and then grow it for the rest of your life and give it away to your friends, and never have to buy it again. So it's a generative product. It's literally alive, and you can feed it and grow it yourself and grow it at home. And like the bathing practices I talk about, you can do them yourself at home. You don't need a pharmaceutical industry. You don't need a big medical infrastructure to be healthy and well. So there are all these generative technologies that that I'm teaching. I'm just about to launch a whole online course called Waking Up to Wellness, which goes into depth about these practices you can do at home, you can do yourself, you can do with very little cost, to totally transform your life. And it involves changing your mindset. So having that mindset of, wow, things are going to be amazing. There is a positive world. My first children's book, it's called The Beautiful Mare and the Boy Who Gave Thanks. And a lot of people in the yoga spiritual community, they know the story. And in fact, in China, the story of this book is more than 2,000 years old. And it's a story, in China, they say Sai Wen Shi Ma. And Sai Wen Shi Ma means, remember the man who lost his horse. Literally, but it's saying they say when they say every cloud has a silver lining, or good things can be good, good things can be bad and bad things can be good. And it's a story about a man who has a horse, and the villagers say, that's good. And he says, I don't know, could be good or bad. And then the horse runs away and the villagers say, oh, that's bad. And he says, I don't know, could be good or bad. And the horse comes back with 6 stallions, and the villagers say, that's good. And he says, I don't know, could be good or bad. And then his son rides the stallions, and breaks his leg. And the villagers say, oh, that's bad. And he says, oh, I don't know, could be good or bad. And then the soldiers come and take all the other boys away to go to a war, and his son isn't taken away because he's got a lame leg. And they say, that's good. And he says, well, I don't know, that's good or bad. So that's the traditional story. And I've got two now teenage boys, but when my boys were growing up, I'd tell them that story, but I wanted to make it more relevant. I wanted them to show them that in any situation, you can say it's good, or you could say it's bad, or you can say it's neutral, or you can be in action and have an open mind and make it the best thing possible. So in this story, I created two sets of villagers. And there's the kind villagers who say, it's good you've got a horse, and the selfish villagers who say, it's bad you've got a horse because now you're richer than us. And then the man just says, I don't know if it's good here. I just know that I've got a horse. And then the boy says, okay, I'll ride the horse. And he rides the horse and he falls in love with the horse. He spends all his time with the horse. He doesn't play with the other boys, doesn't study with his father, doesn't do anything. He just loves the horse, and he gives thanks for the horse, and he's grateful for the horse. Then the horse runs away, and the kind ones say that's bad, and the selfish ones say that's good. Now you're just as poor as everyone else. The man says, I don't know. And the boy says, okay, I'll play with the other boys now. And he plays with the other boys and realizes he loves playing with his friends, and they make up games and secret fantasy worlds. And then he gives thanks that the horse ran away because now he's got friends. So it goes, and then he breaks his leg, and he instead of being depressed and, oh, I've got a broken leg, poor me, he says, okay, I'll study with my father now. He goes with his leg up and studies with his father and realizes he loves learning. So he gives thanks that he broke his leg. So each chapter of the story, the villagers, or the kind and selfish villagers, vacillate. It could be good, or it could be bad. The man's neutral. He's like the Zen master. But the boy is in action. He's got an open mind. He's willing to discover what he can do and what possibilities are there. And he finds something that makes it the best possible thing that could have happened, and he's grateful. And that's the attitude I want people to have, to realize whatever's happening to you, whatever negative thought you have, there's an equally powerful and equally valid positive thought. And you found it when you can hold the negative thought and the positive thought in your mind, and you can be at peace.
Mm.
And even just knowing it's possible to do that the negative thought isn't, the only option you've got. There's always and in fact, there's an infinite number of positive thoughts you can create, because we're creative beings.
Yeah, it's just as equal.
One, that's it. So, and powerful. So that's, I don't know if that's a spiritual belief, but I believe we are all infinite beings, and we have this, we put limits on our consciousness so we can play in the world of space and time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here to participate in the evolution of consciousness.
Mm.
And we're doing it right now. And consciousness is evolving to a whole nother level where we're all being active participants in the birth of a whole new global superorganism, which will be like a global brain.
Yeah. Well, we already are that, we already are one mind. We are already connected. So it depends on the amount of people that can come together to whether we can continue to swing consciousness in that direction of which we want it to go, full of love, growth, connection, peace, harmony, the paradise in which we want to create. So that's why I'm a big fan of your work. And that's what the show's all about. If we can individually change the internal world, that's going to be a direct reflection to the outer world. And the more of us that do that, the more that one brain is going to promote that intention of creating paradise, which is
spot on. And you don't have to go out and protest and be doing stuff active. You can do that just going internally and just elevating your own consciousness.
What are you doing within your imagination? Even how are you imagining what the world is? Are you taking the general narrative, or are you creating the paradise in which you want to live?
That's exactly right. And that's why I think it's so important for us to have discussions about how good the world can possibly be. Because there are so many discussions how dystopian it can be. They make whole TV series about it. And there's so many disaster scenarios how we can obliterate ourselves. There's very few well-versed discussions or movies, showing us what are the possibilities for a world that's alive and well.
And we got to paint that picture.
I think that's the most important discussions we can have.
Yeah, for sure.
So I love the fact you're putting it out there.
Absolutely. Well, again, we're all co-creating together. If we're all one mind, we're all doing our role. And if we can conjoin together, then that's even more energy, again, moving in that direction. So I wanted to ask you, I'd love to understand how people define words. I think this is the thing that, we actually aren't looking at close enough, because our language can create our perception. Words can create word images, which again, create that perception. So how do you define wellness? What does embodying wellness look like in a sense?
So wellness, I would say the currency of wellness is connection.
Mm.
So, and wellness is about we, where illness is about I.
Yeah.
So there's a famous story about Swami Satchidananda, who's the founder of Integral Yoga, who was asked, what's the difference between illness and wellness? And he just went up to the board and circled the we in wellness, I in illness, and sat down and didn't say a thing. So that wellness is when you look, feel, perform, and stay well. So it's when you're fully connected with yourself, you're fully connected with other people, and you're fully connected with nature. So that's, it's all about connection. And to be well means not just healthy. Healthy is sort of a bit boring. I mean, wellness is exuberant. It's fun. Yeah. And a lot of my life is about fun. Where do you find the fun? Because fun is a guide for our well-being. In fact, just before I retired, I've still got 6 PhD students. I haven't fully retired. I just don't get paid anymore. I just do it because I love it. But before that, the Medical Journal of Australia wrote a whole autobiography about my career. And they titled it Finding the Fun, because that's been such a dominant thing in my career. Because I've chosen all these fun disciplines to research, hot springs and health retreats and all of that. I think fun is a really big generator of the directions that we need to head. And I forgot what your question is now, but
no, you definitely gave me the definition of wellness. That's
wellness. That's right. Yeah, wellness. Yeah. So wellness is fun. It's exuberant. It's not just being healthy and not having disease, and it's not just exuberant by yourself. And one of the big things, because when I started into medicine, when you choose what you're going to study, when I was choosing what I was going to study at university, I figured, medicine would teach me all about health and how to be happy and fulfilled. And I did that not because I wanted to treat sick people. I wanted to make, healthy people even better. And starting with myself, how do I be healthy and well? And what I've learned is I can only be healthy and well if everyone around me is healthy and well.
Yes.
So, and I feel the best. I have the most fun where everyone around me is having fun and everyone around me is healthy. And right now we get our security, our so-called security, from this big military industrial complex that has, chemical, biological, nuclear,
it's anything but fun.
And cyber weapons, psychological weapons. That's supposed to keep us secure. But really our security comes from the health and prosperity of everyone else. If everyone else is healthy and well, then we can travel the world without ID, past, vaccine, immunization IDs and all of this, because it's the health of everybody that actually supports our own well-being. And there's a saying, if you share pain, it decreases. And if you share joy, it increases.
Yes.
So wellness is about how we can share our joy and amplify our efforts with each other. And then we all rise. So for me, that's what wellness is.
What a beautiful definition. I love that, and I resonate with that a lot. So I'm a big fan of water, as are you. I love water. It's such an incredibly fascinating life form, being able to hold consciousness and respond to consciousness, words, emotions, thoughts, pictures, movies, music, light, electromagnetic radiation, which is a form of light. But, you can actually see this in the crystallization of the water, which is so interesting. And it also has an infinite capacity to hold memory. So I definitely want to dive into some of those with you. So my first question,
we could spend days.
What was your first question? So what was your introduction to the life and intelligence and beauty of water? And 2, can you explain to me more when you say we humans are evolved water?
Sure. Again, we could be here for days. Well, I mean, when I was introduced to water, I was, in the womb. I was in this watery womb, and then born into Melbourne. And Melbourne, Melbourne's pretty blessed because I've always grown up, near the beach, near the rivers. We've gone to the mountains and had the snow. We've gone to the hot springs and immersed myself in the hot springs and the swimming pools. And I've always been a water person. I've loved water as a recreation, and I'm a Piscean, so I'm a water baby. But I've traditionally had long baths. When I was studying medicine, I would take a textbook into the bath and have a board across the bath, and I'd read a whole textbook, and take me 8 hours, relaxed in the bath reading. And because I was relaxed and I was just reading it like a novel, it would sink in. I'd absorb stuff. But also in the bath, I remember even as a small child studying the water coming out of the tap. and how you have laminar flow, and when laminar flow becomes turbulent, and that turbulent flow, and how that happens, and how that's different with different temperatures. I remember doing that as a kid. And the hot water becomes turbulent a lot faster than cold water does. Cold water is more viscous. So I remember just being in the bath as a kid, studying that and loving that, and being involved with that. And so water's been a big part of my life, my whole life. And when I've been studying, consciousness and studying evolution, I've come up with, these bridge, I guess, between different systems. So in Chinese medicine, they have a 5-element system. And in the mid-1980s, when I was doing my PhD in Chinese medicine, I came across 5-element theory, which has metal, water, wood, fire, earth. And then I started practicing martial arts, which uses each of those elements as either a tonifying agent to increase your energy, or a sedating agent to release that energy. And it's a healing art, but it also can either defend or attack based on the 5-element theory. And then I in the 2000s, I discovered 5 rhythms, which is a dance practice. It was invented by Gabrielle Roth, or discovered, revealed by Gabrielle Roth, and she looked at nature that went through the transitions of flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness. And that's when you have these evolutionary transformations. So your life is like that. You start off as a baby flowing, where everything's flowing and dribbling, and your consciousness is flowing. Childhood, where it's staccato, where you have your boundaries and you're running around here and there, stopping and starting. To adolescence, which is chaotic. To adulthood, which is lyrical. That's when you create and you produce. And then old age, which is stillness. So that happens in your lifespan. And when I've been looking at the patterns, I've always loved biology. In the 1980s, when I was doing my VCE then, my HSC, high school certificate, I was at Melbourne High School. I won the biology prize because I love biology so much. And that was the year that David Attenborough's Life on Earth series came out. Oh. So I was fascinated by evolution and life on Earth and how that works. But when I've looked at the patterns, and I don't know anyone else that talks about this, I've discovered these same patterns of flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness happen throughout evolution. And I can summarize it in very, very few words. So if you look at the evolution of invertebrate life from the primordial soup, well, the primordial soup is like the gel phase of life, and that's flowing. It's like, it was all watery. Then the staccato phase is when life became encapsulated within a cell. That's staccato because it's got a boundary. And then from the cellular phase, that some cells engulfed other cells and went from prokaryotic cells to eukaryotic cells with cytoskeletons and organelles. So that's a complex cell. And then those complex cells got engulfed and they worked together and they became multicellular organisms. And those eukaryotic cells became gametes and had sexual reproduction. And once you had sexual reproduction, you had this explosion of complexity in the Cambrian period, 600 million years ago. And then we had shells, which engulfed the flesh of sponges and worms and jellies and things. That was the stillness phase. And shelled life goes everywhere. And shelled life is still the dominant biomass on Earth. We're talking about insects, shellfish, crustaceans, arthropods, etc. So that's so we went from gels to cells to organelles to sexual cells and shells. That was the whole. And that was flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness with vertebrate life.
Wow.
Then invertebrate life. Then vertebrate life went from the oceans with fish to on land with reptiles, to the air with birds, to everywhere with mammals, because mammals can go in the air, the water, and the land. And then with humans who can go anywhere because we can make airplanes and Gore-Tex jackets and things like that. So that went from scales with fish, to skin with reptiles, to feathers, to fur, to fashion. So those 5 words, scale, skin, feather, fur, and fashion is flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness. But that's the whole evolution of vertebrate life. And then the evolution of humanity is pretty much the evolution of information technology. And our information technology went from words, which were hunter-gatherers, nomads, used words to communicate. Then we went to empires, which are agricultural, which is staccato, it's backwards and forwards, armies marching, cities with walls around them. That's staccato. And then they used writing. So they had writing to hold the cities together. Then 600 years ago, we had printing, which really fueled the industrial age. That was chaos, big release of energy with industry. And then we had broadcasting, which is lyrical, where we had radio and television, and one person could talk to the whole world, or talk to everybody. And now we're in the age of networking, which is stillness, where we have a global population and everybody can talk to anybody, and anybody can talk to everybody. So that's the age of stillness. So again, in 5 words, the whole of human culture can be summarized by talking, writing, printing, broadcasting, and networking. And that again goes from flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness, from words to writing to printing to broadcasting to networking. So these are the patterns that are sort of sequential in nature that go through our evolution. And it's all to do with water. And it started, and if you go even before vertebrate life, if you look at how water formed on Earth, water, it's about 4.5 billion years ago, the hottest water in the solar system met the coldest water in the solar system. Now, the hottest water in the solar system was in the molten Earth. It was, hydrogen, oxygen mashed up in the magma of the forming Earth. The coldest water in the solar system was in these comets, ice crystals out past Neptune. And there was a period where we had the late heavy bombardment, when these comets, it was around the time when the moon was being formed. All these comets, icy comets, with freezing water met this hot water. That was the flowing phase. They were both flowing around the sun. And then the staccato phase, when that water got captured on Earth by gravity. So suddenly you had this terrestrial bound water. And then that ice and molten rock and water, hot water formed steam, and then we had the atmosphere. That created the Earth's atmosphere, which is water vapor, and that was the chaos phase. And then that vapor cooled down and formed liquid water, and it rained for, I don't know, literally millions of years. And the whole Earth was covered by water. And that water sculptured the land, and it made rivers and canyons, and it settled into the low points to make the oceans. And the oceans were stillness. And then the start of invertebrate life, so the birth of life, also happened when the hottest water on Earth met the coldest water on Earth. So the hottest water on Earth is actually the very bottom of the oceans, coming out of hydrothermal vents. So it's come through the Earth, it's been heated up by the Earth's crust, and it's coming out, and it can be 400 degrees centigrade and still liquid, because it's under so much pressure, 10 kilometers of pressure, of water above it. So it's superheated, super mineralized water coming out of the bottom of the ocean. But at the bottom of the ocean is also where the coldest water on Earth gravitates, because the coldest water on Earth is the densest water. And that dense water just sinks to the very bottom. So when this really cold, dense water meets this hot, mineralized water, you have an incredible range of temperature and pressure and solutes. So that's the birth of organic chemistry. And that still happens today. The hydrothermal vents at the bottom of the ocean are still what feeds all the plankton on Earth right now. And there's this incredible, they call it the thermohaline circulation. And there's a great nova, there's a PBS have a documentary you can watch for free called Earth from Space. And in that documentary, they talk about some of the cycles that happen. And we know when water freezes, it becomes structured. And structured water is less dense, and ice is less dense than cold water. So every winter in Antarctica, when the ice is freezing, the seawater starts to freeze. This very salty, dense water gets ejected from the ice, and it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. They call that, and there's a waterfall, this dense, salty waterfall, which is beautifully described in this documentary, which is, I think it's 500,000 times Niagara Falls.
Wow.
So there's like amazing amount of this structured water going down to the bottom of the ocean. And that takes between 200 and maybe 2,000 years to circle around the very bottom of the ocean. That helps keep the Earth cool. But eventually that super cold water, which is also highly oxygenated and very salty, meets these hydrothermal vents. And these hydrothermal vents have lots of minerals, nitrates and phosphates. And that creates organic chemistry, which then produces these like fertilizer mix. And that fertilizer mix then keeps on traveling until it hits the continental shelf. Then it comes up to the surface and feeds phytoplankton. And that phytoplankton is what provides our oxygen.
Wow.
So we know that we know that phytoplankton needs sun to provide our oxygen, but it also needs nutrients, and the nutrients are produced all the time by these hydrothermal vents. So that's so it's still the hottest water on Earth meeting the coldest water on Earth that's producing and fueling all life on Earth. And yeah, it's amazing video, Earth from space. It's got incredible footage of this satellite imagery, and they describe that really beautifully. So this living, I mean, we are a living planet. We are part of water. So water is who we are. And
Yeah.
a few years ago, I think 2016, I got to speak at the International Conference on the Physics, Chemistry and Biology of Water, which is run by Gerald Pollack, who has a great book, The Fourth Phase of Water. Great TED Talk he's got, worth watching. So I was speaking at this conference about water, wellness and wealth and the deep inner well of our being. And there literally is a well. There literally is a well in our being. We produce our own water. Every time you metabolize glucose, you produce 6 water molecules for every glucose molecule. Because the respiration is glucose and oxygen. You burn glucose with oxygen, and you get carbon dioxide and water, and energy. So we actually produce our own pure biological water. And when you talk to Gerald Pollack, and he explains it really well. But we think of ourselves as 2/3 water by volume or by mass. But if you count our molecules, we're 99.9% water. And that's because water's tiny. I mean, hydrogen's the smallest atom, 2 hydrogen and an oxygen. It's really, really tiny compared to biological molecules, nucleic acids, proteins, collagen, just massive. And they're all surrounded by this watery matrix. So water is literally who we are. And, if we're 99.9% water, how come we're not a puddle on the floor?
Yeah.
And that's because we're structured water. We're what I call intelligent gel. And I've got a poem which I'm not going to recite now, which I'm still tweaking, but it's the story of water that tells what I've just told you, that whole story from water coming to Earth, and that first wave of water, which I call it, which is the formation of water, and then the second wave of water, which I call it, which is invertebrate life, and the third wave, which is vertebrate life, and the fourth wave is human life. And we're about to enter the 5th wave of water, where human life and all life on Earth merge together and form a global superorganism. So that's the whole poem, the story of water, which tries to tell this story in a way that people can digest. But I love talking about this. I think it's so fascinating, and it's not that well explained to people, and people don't get the wonder. Water is such a mysterious, magical substance. There are more than 70 anomalies that scientists cannot explain about water.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally a mystery, and it's a life form. Like, a lot of us think of it as like a substance. It's just this liquid substance that we drink, but
or an industrial product.
Yeah, that we drink in plastic bottles. Yeah. It's so interesting, and I mean, I could just talk to you all day about water. If something I want to ask you about it in relation to water is how emotions impact the structure of our water within us. Can you kind of explore that a little bit? Because if emotions are energy and motion, and energy and frequency and vibration, I mean, they've shown in, I did an interview with my friend Kimba Arem, who co-produced the Life of Water, which is on Gaia. And, they show the crystallization of someone saying, I love you to the water. And it creates this beautiful love heart geometrical pattern to when someone says, I hate you. But if someone says, I hate you, it goes incoherent, shattery, and it looks broken and dead. I'm just wondering, with all the fear going around and whatnot, how is that affecting the structure within our water as humans?
Well, absolutely, it does. When I was at this conference on the Physics, Chemistry and Biology of Water in Bulgaria, I was doing a hot spring tour, and I was actually collecting DNA samples from all the hot springs around Europe. But I've created a group. I'm part of a group called the Global Thermal Think Tank. We're a group of people who own and operate hot springs, and it's another story, but I'm a shareholder of an incredible, pristine eco hot spring resort in New Zealand called Maria Hot Springs. And we formed this group, the Global Thermal Think Tank, and we invited this one of the researchers, scientists from Germany, to come to our Global Thermal Think Tank and talk to us. And his name is Bernd Kroplan. And he did similar to what Masaru Emoto did with, who freezes the crystals and sees the beautiful patterns.
Yep.
But what Bernd does is he gets water and he asks you to hold a test tube, or he'll put a flower in the water, or he'll do something to the water. And then hopefully when we haven't frozen here, because your screen's frozen now.
It's frozen. Can you still
Mine's
hear me?
not. I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yeah, it's
You're
still
hearing me
going all clear.
okay, so your screen was just freezing up a bit. So what Bernd Cropland does, and he's got a great website, it's mostly in German, called the World in a Drop. But he gets people to hold a test tube with water, or he gets puts a bit of flour in water or something in the water, and then he takes a dropper and makes a series of drops on a microscope slide. He waits till that dries, and he looks at it under a dark field microscope. So it's not a frozen water crystal; it's just a drop that's been dried. And if you hold water, all your drops will look very, very similar, but they'll look very different from my drops or someone else's drops. So they're quite unique to each person.
Is that like in the sense of every snowflake is different? Kind of same relation to that?
It's even more than that, because it means that you, just by holding that water and putting that energy or whatever emotion you've got into that water,
Yeah.
because all the drops that you have will be the same, or very, very recognizably yours. They'll have like a signature that's just Lachlan, whereas all mine will have the signature that is Marc, and they'll look like your fingerprint. They'll look unique.
Yep.
And it's reproducible. And there's a lot of forces in the world that don't want to acknowledge this sort of science. And this guy, he's a professor at Stuttgart University, but he's a professor of aeronautical engineering. He designs aeroplanes that can, stay up for months at a time in the stratosphere. But he's not a water scientist. So his university told him he's not allowed to talk scientifically about this because it's not his area of expertise, trying to sort of gag him to not promote this. And he said, oh, okay, I'll just talk about it as art. So he was traveling around Europe running like art exhibitions, showing these beautiful photos of people's drops of water and how you can change that drop by what you think or what you feel, and showing that on a slide. And that's, as I say, he's got a great website called The World in a Drop. He's got a book on it, and these incredibly beautiful images, very different from the Emoto images. They're not like a six-starred snowflake. They're sort of round.
I'll definitely have to check that out. Yeah.
Fingerprints, really worth checking out. So when you say the emotions change water, well, this is like physical example that you can see for yourself that happens.
Yeah, that's really extraordinary. And I think I just wanted to give people some context on, how powerful water is in the terms of it can respond to emotions. And if we are molecularly 99% water and just biologically 2/3 water, our emotions are doing much more than affecting us biologically. They're affecting us molecularly if we are 99% water. Another thing I wanted to ask you about water was, if water basically has an infinite capacity to hold memory, and I've explored this with my friend too, do you think it's the water within the body and the brain that's holding the memory rather than the matter tissue, the materialistic tissue?
Well, it certainly does, but it's not just the memory, it's the consciousness.
Yeah.
And the consciousness is even more primary than memory.
Mm.
So, when we talk about the primordial soup that we all came from, we have these autocatalytic, autopoietic cycles, that self-organizing cycles that happen between nucleic acids that have hereditary, because once you have a nucleic acid, it remembers what it was, because as it reproduces, there's a memory of what happened.
Yeah.
So that happens at an absolute biochemical level with just simple, very, very simple nucleic acids. And now what we call viruses in the virome, these are just like words. A virus is like a bit of email that's going from one cell to another. It's just a message of information, and viral sequences are like the words of water. It's water expressing words and talking to itself. And we say that we're waking up from the matrix. We are the matrix.
Yeah.
We're the matrix waking up to ourselves. We are water waking up to itself. And what we do to ourselves, that's what we do to water. And the more we understand water, the more we will understand ourselves. And there's still so much we don't understand. That's where the magic in the world is, in water. And when we understand that, we're going to, the world will be, because imagine if we were in harmony with the weather rather than opposing the weather.
Yep.
Imagine if we could get water to detoxify the oceans and detoxify ourselves rather than us, polluting water. I'm a really big fan of Victor Schauberger.
Yep.
And he has this implosion technology. So at the moment, all our technologies are explosive. They're going out, they're spiraling outwards. But there's also, for every explosive technology, you have implosive technology. And there's a potential for for example, pipes that you can have where you get negative friction when you have water spiraling through pipes. So you can actually have pipes that generate energy from the flow of water. That water cleans itself. And I've got this beautiful water company I'm about to launch, where we have these incredible filters with stainless steel tubes, but we put the water through vortex devices, and they cavitate, and that actually restructures the water, but it actually imbues that water with not just structure but information. And then once you've structured the water, then you can actually bless that water and imprint it with positive emotion, with blessings, with magic, which is not scientific, but science just can't hold a candle to the mysteries of water yet.
Yeah.
So we need to go beyond science when we're dealing with water. And the wonder is that when you structure and it might just be as simple as, if you put, the words "I love you" or some beautiful image and put it on your water meter at home, or put it where the water comes into your house, just that conscious connection you have where your water is coming from changes your relationship with that water. There are magnetic devices, and this is another thing that's really not widely discussed, but this is quite documented in the literature, that when you have magnetic treatments for water and water structuring treatments, you have better products. So bakers know this, baking bread, and people who make concrete know this, and also in agriculture. So they've done really good studies where if you magnetize water, you get a wetter dough for bread, and you get a moister bread, which is a better quality product, and you get a wetter concrete mix, and you get a stronger concrete. So this is like not just airy-fairy, it feels good, tastes good, or anything. This is like, demonstrable differences. And when you have magnetically structured water, you can grow crops with less water and get more productivity. And that's amazing, especially in Australia, where it's such a dry continent. To be able to reduce your water demand and have more agricultural productivity just by using magnetic structuring of water is astounding. Yet, the powers that be, they actually have this policy of health by toxicity, where they're going to poison you to keep you safe. So what they do is they put chlorine in our water, they put fluoride in our water, which are both really toxic agents. And with chlorine, the reason why they use it is it's so toxic, it's so dangerous to life, that even at 0.2 to 0.6 parts per million, when it comes out of your tap, it'll kill bacteria. And it's designed to be 0.2 to 0.6 parts per million, so it kills bacteria at the point of use. And I mean, that was done after the First World War when there were cholera and typhoid outbreaks. Before we realized that bacteria are our friends. Bacteria are us. In fact, there's more us, more about genetic information, more of our cells and genetic information are bacterial, and even more is viral than we are human. So, most people are waging war on their microbiome every time they wash themselves or every time they drink chlorinated water. And when you think about the toxicity of, say, chlorine, for example, it's much more toxic when you bathe in it than when you drink it. And there's some really good studies on it. They did a study in the sort of mid-late 1990s where they were testing the absorption of disinfection byproducts. So, chloroform, trihalomethanes, chlorine, etc. And they were looking at when you ingest it by drinking it, or whether you inhale it, or whether it absorbs through your skin. So they got people to drink a litre of chlorinated water, and they tested the amount that was in their blood of chlorine and chloramines and trihalomethanes, etc., chloroform, and it didn't appear in their blood. But that's because the liver filters it all out. So the liver will, if you drink something, it goes through your liver before it enters your general circulation, and your liver filters that out. But then they got people to wear a wetsuit and just breathe the water from a shower, and it appeared in their blood straight away. Because when you breathe it, it goes through your lungs and it bypasses the liver. So straight away, you have this big dose of chlorine, chloroform, etc., in your blood. And then they got people to breathe fresh air, but have their skin exposed to the water. And again, it goes through your skin, straight away they found it in their blood. And the dose that you got through your skin or your breathing was just as much, if not more, than you got from drinking.
Wow.
And we know that chlorine in water will cause bladder cancer and affects your microbiome. But they don't, in those calculations, they don't actually consider the amount that you inhale and the amount that you get through your skin. And I mean, when I studied medicine in the early 1980s, we were taught that your skin has a surface area of about 1.8 square meters, if you laid it out. And that your gut had a massive surface area because your gut's got all these little villi that, go up and down and increase the surface area of your gut. So that's where all the bacteria live. Well, last year, there was a paper published in one of the Nature Science journals that actually recalculated and that said, well, wait a minute, our skin has all these little indentations. Every time you have a hair follicle and a sweat gland, and there's a couple of million of them, you have this epithelial lining where all the oils that protect your skin are secreted and where all the bacteria live. And if you calculate that surface area, your skin has a surface area of 30 square meters. And that's a surface area that is our interaction with bacteria, and our surface, the bacteria on our skin, as I say, it's the first line of defense for our immune system. It also trains our systemic immune system. There's these antigen presenting cells, dendritic cells, that train our immune system that happen at the surface of our skin. And the oils that are secreted are protecting us from the sun, they're protecting us from pathogens, they're fostering the good bacteria that also protect us from pathogens and help detect a pathogen and then present it to our antigen presenting cells and train our immune system. So when you're bathing in chlorinated water, you're oxidizing those oils, you're stripping away that protective layer, you're changing the microflora of your skin towards more pathogenic bacteria. So it's like you're using war chemicals to wage war on life. And, I think that's one of the most powerful things anybody can do to raise their health is to change their water, to upgrade their water. And that, in my poem, the recipe for wellness starts with bathe in beautiful water, because that's one of the most powerful. And I'm a big fan of permaculture. And Bill Mollison used to say that when you get the basic things right, everything else can go right by itself. And the most basic thing you can ever get right is getting water right. And that's true if you're making a permaculture property and you're putting swales and you're controlling where the water and capturing rain and you're managing the water flow for your property. It's also the same for your body. Managing the water flowing through your body, getting that right, upgrading that water is one of the most powerful things we can do for our health.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, somehow we forget the basics. It's weird. Like you said, you're a lover of permaculture and the concept of laying down the basics and everything else kind of falling into place. People don't understand that before you even get a vaccine, before you even get a supplement or a drug, if just simply the water alone isn't healthy within you, that's not going to have much of an impact. It's not really going to do much, So I'm wondering, you did cite your poems, but is there any other, do you have a bedrock foundation principles for health and wellness?
Well, I do. I mean, there's a whole series of them. So, the recipe for wellness and the antidote to fear, and the hacks to relax and the slow down, shovel the activities you do, and then what I call the extreme being, going to the extremes of being. So, filter and flush your bladder, and feast and fast your bowel, and pant and hold your breath, and hot and cold your body, and do and don't with your brain. So these are all just principles, and notice none of them. They're not products. You don't have to buy these things. These are things you can just do. And even though I've co-authored one of the basic textbooks for herbs and supplements, I don't really promote supplements and pills. I don't think that's where you get health from. Mind you, I am promoting now kombucha vinegars and kombucha and living brews. But again, you don't even have to buy that. You can get given a SCOBY once in your life and grow it and keep it for the rest of your life as a SCOBY and just feed it.
And that's that's a food product. It's not really like a supplement. Anyways, it's food.
Correct. That's right. Well, it's food as medicine, and that's been suppressed for hundreds of years. Because if you look at the history of kombucha, it was it's sweet fermented tea, and it was first recorded in 200 BC in Manchuria, tea growing areas of northern China. But then it went along the Silk Road with the Mongols in the 1300s, and they called it the elixir of immortality. It was like not getting strong. But then it went to Europe, and it was the domain of what they call the alewives of women who would make they'd make beer and fermented medicines. And these medicines were really potent poisons as well as really potent medicines. And they used all these different herbs that they could ferment and activate the medicinal properties. But we lost a lot of that knowledge when these women were persecuted and killed and burnt as witches, because they threatened the power of the church, because they could heal and cure people and kill people through these fermented foods. But even then, fermented food, because it's so useful for preserving food, And especially in Europe when it's cold and winter, they need to preserve their foods. And all the herbs that we use to preserve foods often have antimicrobial properties. So things like horseradish or chili or garlic, all the stuff you often put in traditional preserves are all quite medicinal herbs as well. And now they're starting to do research on those medicinal properties. And what they're finding is when you imbue herbs into a ferment, into a brew, you get bioactivation of these phytochemicals. So they become even more medicinal. And if you think about a SCOBY, which is a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast, these are, because normally we think of bacteria and yeast as being harmful for us, they're pathogenic. These are symbiotic bacteria and yeast that have evolved with humans to help humans. So they produce prebiotics and probiotics that actually help us. And they also bioactivate these herbal properties, the medicinal properties of herbs to make them even more potent. And they've started to do research on this, but it's really fascinating that they've never done proper clinical trials. There are no human clinical trials on kombucha. There's hundreds of studies on the microbial properties and the biochemical properties. And I think the reason is because if they show that kombucha has medicinal properties, they can't patent it and people can grow it at home. Mm. So, what's the use of doing a big clinical trial where people can then just take a sample of the living brew and grow it at home and don't need to buy it again? So in this company I've just started called Extremely Alive, Extremely Alive.
That's great.
That's our company name, Extremely Alive. So we're about to release these kombucha vinegars, but we actually got a government grant, and the universities are closed right now, but we would have had the results already. But we're doing 2 research projects. One's at Sydney University with Jenny Brand Miller's laboratory, and they've got the sugars laboratory where they actually discovered or invented glycemic index. Glycemic index testing. So we're doing glycemic and insulin response testing after kombucha compared to a water or a fake sugar soft drink to see the insulin and the glycemic response. And then we're also doing it where I used to work still supervise students, but at RMIT University, we're doing metagenomic research where we're actually documenting all the genetics of all the different organisms in a kombucha SCOBY, because they're quite unique to each SCOBY, and we're actually researching how the SCOBY responds to different types of water. Like if we magnetize the water, if we bless the water, is there any detectable difference in how the bacteria and the yeast grow? And so then we can actually optimize the water. I mean, we're already using beautiful water, which is filtered, structured, balanced, best, comes from a spring for our products, and they're all organic products. But then how can we optimize that even further? Can we bless it? Can we magnetize it? Can we vortex it? What can we do to make that water even more alive so the bacteria and yeast have a better time and they can do even more of this bioactivation and biological enhancement of the herbs we're using? So that's ongoing research that we're doing. And I'm super excited by that, although I'm frustrated that we've had to put that research on hold while all the universities are locked down.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm super excited too. It sounds like an amazing project you're working on. And it's so interesting because the human biome is fascinating. This ecosystem of bacteria and microbes and fungus and yeast that live in and on our body and all the different habitats on our body. We are a shell, essentially. We are just a host to these microbes, this community. So in a sense, if we keep them happy, they're going to keep the home happy. So this is when it comes into what you're eating and what you're drinking and what you're touching and what you're putting in your body.
Well, that's so important. And talking about happy home, is one of my current PhD students who's just finishing a PhD now. Is a woman, amazing dynamo of a woman called Nicole Bausner. And she pretty much created the building biology industry in Australia. So she's run her own college for 20 years, teaching a 3-year full-time course on building biology. So she trains people to go into your home and look at electromagnetic fields and look at chemicals and look at air quality. And we've been, doing consultancies and research on health hazards in the home. And water is so critical. So if your home is too dry, you get viral infection. I talked about how the moist, having your nose nice and moist is a barrier to infection. But if your house is too wet and especially humid, or if you've got water damage or any water, sitting around at all, you get mold. So we live in the barrier between mold and virus. And ideally you want about 50% humidity. That's the key level of humidity you want for optimal health, and plus or minus 10%. So between say 40 and 60% humidity is like the sweet spot for humans. If it goes below 40%, which often happens when it's dry, when it's really cold, because warm air holds more moisture. So when air gets cold, it won't hold as much moisture. So in wintertime, the temperature drops, the air temperature drops, the moisture goes out of the air, you get cold, dry air, then your nasal cavity dries out, viruses can penetrate, you're more prone to illness. And there's all the other reasons of sunshine and exercise and all of that sort of stuff. But if you have about over, say, 60 or maybe really over 70% humidity, you start getting condensation and you get mold. If water is sitting for more than 20 to 48 hours as liquid water in your home, mold will germinate. Water doesn't ever want to be sterile. Water is a natural generator of life.
Yeah.
And it's not like, spontaneous generation, but there are spores everywhere. There are viruses everywhere. And if water sits there, life will take advantage of that. So, there's no point trying to bleach away a mold thing. If you want to get rid of mold, you have to get rid of the source of water and control that source of water. And in winter, if you're in a cold environment, you need to increase the humidity and the warmth of your living environment to make it healthy. And if you're in the tropics or in a very humid place, you need to decrease the humidity. And there's a whole lot of tweaks you can do. I mean, I've got a whole course, this Waking Up to Wellness course, where we go into depth of all these things. But it's not just the water in our bodies, it's the water in the air that really has a big factor of how healthy and well we are. And, it's... getting the water right is just, it's really complex, but it's also really simple at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. And is this doing things like boiling the kettle, cooking, putting water over a pot, hot showering and things like that?
Absolutely. So in winter, all the things you naturally do in winter, where you have lots of big stews and big soups, so they're on the kettle, on the stove for a long time, having lots of cups of tea, bringing the firewood inside. So the firewood would radiate water, drying your clothes inside, so that releases water, having indoor plants, having an aquarium, having water features. All these things will increase the water vapor in your house. And then summer, drying your clothes outside and taking the firewood outside, maybe even taking the plants outside and reducing the humidity in the house. So yeah, exactly. There's all these basic things that people have been doing for generations and not really realizing that that's the reason they've been doing it. They just know that makes them feel better. But there is a science behind what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah, again, simple practices, but reaping, the highest of results. It's amazing. I want to touch on, for people still fearing viruses, and we did touch on, the microbiome, but the microvirome is also very important. I think people just, again, are running a narrative that is not really supporting what viruses actually are. It's been very anthropomorphized, or it's this critter and it does this and it does certain things, and it's it has this certain character to it in a sense. But can you kind of touch on the fact that we are made of viruses, the microvirome, and then
go
and then just touch on how heat plays a role?
Well, if you look at I walked you through the whole of evolution. We started in this primordial soup, and every stage you don't lose it. The previous stage, you just engulf and absorb the previous
and
stage.
integrate it. Yeah?
So the primordial soup is still in us, in our protoplasm. And then the prokaryotic cells are still in us as our mitochondria. And the eukaryotic cells are still in us as all our cells. And so all of these are encased within us. So we are, the virome, or the microvirome, is an essential part of our makeup. And they talk about more bacterial cells in your body than human cells. Well, there's 10 to 100 times more viral particles in your body than bacterial cells.
Let that sink in.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think there's 55 trillion viruses in every milliliter of seawater. Viruses are everywhere. And I think, there's a whole discussion about viruses are exosomes. As viruses are not alive. Viruses can't attack you. Viruses don't have a desire to do anything. They're like a word. They're like the communication network for cells. That's how cells talk to each other, using fragments of DNA. So virus is more like a communication channel, but it's a really important one. And that's why when you go into nature, they've done all this research on forest bathing. And just by going into nature and sitting with trees, you exchange viral particles and genetic material with the soil and with the trees. That's really good for you. When you touch other people, when you touch, we're meant to touch our face all the time, Because what we're doing there is we're exploring what's in our environment, and then we're introducing it to our nasal mucosa, where our cells, our good bacteria and our immune cells are, that can then check it out and say, have I seen that before? If I haven't, let's present it to and let's make an antibody. If I have, we'll sniff up and cough out, and then it's gone. And you've got the cilia that keep on moving. So that's happening all the time. We're meant to be exposed to each other and viruses. And I have a theory, and it's not yet proven, or it's possible to research it. But then when you bathe socially, so if you go into a hot spring or into a hot tub with other people, I mean, you're definitely sharing microbes, but it's possible to infect yourself with good health. Now we know that with fecal oral transplants, where you take someone else's feces and you have a poo pill, and you can cure Clostridium bacterial, Clostridium difficile enteritis. So that's you literally you can infect someone with good health, and a lot of these amazing fountains of youth and springs where people have these incredible cures. I suspect there is information within the water that gets transferred, but I would also suspect there are living aspects of that water, whether they're viruses or bacteria, that literally infect us with good health. So I really believe that wellness can be just as effective as illness.
Absolutely.
And these practices that I'm promoting, whether it's the bathing practices or growing a SCOBY and giving it away to your friends, or having on my kitchen table I've always got Tulsi plants. So these are just, Tulsi is holy basil. I've written a whole lot of research on that. It's the most sacred herb in Ayurveda. But you take a cutting, normally that would have flowers, but it's winter now. But these, there's little roots here. So I'm going to plant these and then give them away to a friend, and the friend will have a Tulsi plant growing. So these are things you can give away, but you get to keep them. So I've still got my Tulsi plant here, but I can give away a Tulsi plant and I get to keep it. I can give away a SCOBY, I get to keep it. I can give away a smile, I can give away a hug, but I still get to keep it. So I love these things that you can do that are generative, that can spread. So when you give it away, but you get to keep it, then those other people can generate it, give it away, and you have this exponential multiplier effect. And I think that can be so much more powerful than a viral multiplier effect.
Yeah.
So that's, and when you're talking about heat, viruses melt at 55 degrees. We talked about that. But it's not just killing the virus. The heat simulates a fever. So, but when you're sick, making a fever, it's costly. It takes a lot of metabolic energy to make a fever. You have to up-regulate your thermoregulatory system and generate that energy from your metabolism. And that's why you get really tired when you're sick, because you've used all this metabolic energy to make a fever rather than do what you need to do, and you get really tired. But it's possible to outsource that energy to a hot water system or a sauna or the sun or a hot spring. So you can use the heat from the hot spring or the sauna or your bath or your shower or whatever, and raise your body temperature. And by raising your body temperature, there's a whole cascade of biochemical, physiological, and psychological processes that I've written about in this peer-reviewed article on turning up the heat in COVID-19 that shows that it actually stimulates your immune system. It boosts your physiology. It calms your mind. You sleep better. And sleep's another one of those things. When you get the basic things right, everything else goes right. Well, if you sleep well, it's so much easier for the other things in your life to go right, and your immune system and your how you feel and your emotions are much better when you've slept well. But you sleep really well after a hot bath or a sauna. And we've done research on that. I've got still one of my PhD students now, Joy Hussain. We've published quite a bit of sauna research. We're about to publish another clinical trial that we've done. But we did a survey of people using saunas, and they all said, yeah, we sleep much better after we use a sauna. So you're talking about, you asked me about, viruses, susceptibility to heat. Yeah, well, they're totally susceptible. In fact, as I say, they use that for sterilizing police cars. They use that heat for sterilizing vaccines, because there's viral particles that get trapped in vaccines. They actually heat treat them. And heat is the most commonly used disinfection process for an autoclave. When you boil water, when you put water in a heat sterilizer, that you're using heat to literally sterilize. So we know that heat is really effective at destroying viruses. And you shouldn't even say kill viruses, because viruses aren't alive. When we say kill viruses, it gives you the impression that they're alive and you can kill them. Well, no, they're not. It's like a word. And all you're doing is dissolving the word, getting rid of the letters and chucking, throwing the letters away.
They're like little codes.
That's right.
Yeah.
But so heat will actually dissolve them and destroy them or deactivate them. And it happens at the viral level, but it also happens at your physiological level, where it supports your immune system or the first barrier function of your immune system. So it helps the cilia, move the mucus away. It helps the innate immune system, so it helps your T cells and B cells. They become more fluid, they become more mobile, and they become more active, so they can migrate to where they're needed. They can release the cytokines that are needed. So yeah, heat on every level and can boost your immune system, but also artificially heating your body. So when you go into a sauna, it's just as important to spend as much time, or a hot bath, cooling down and relaxing as you did heating up and being hot. And by doing that, you're training your body to turn off the inflammatory response, to actually shut down that cytokine storm and to come back to balance. So the cooling down is just as important. And I mean, I'm talking here about heat, but heat's a really powerful process, force. Heat will drive a steam train,
Yeah.
or run a power station. So you have to use it with respect, but it's common sense respect. So when you have a hot cup of tea, when you're going to hold it. If it's too hot, you don't hold it. You hold it when it's just enough that you can comfortably hold it. If you're in the sunbaking, there's a point where you say, okay, I'm hot enough now. I need to go and dip in the pool, or jump in the ocean. I'm getting too hot. So if soup is too hot, you can work it out that okay,
Yeah.
I'm not going to the skull burning. Now some people do that, and you really need to be aware. So a lot of people have died in saunas. Most of the deaths are related to alcohol, where they're not being aware, they're being drunk, and haven't been able to do their natural thermoregulation. And you can use heat and cold. I mean, cold is just as good, and it's actually really good to use both. But what you want to do is get to the point of what I call forced mindfulness. And that's the point where your body's saying, hey, it's getting really hot here, maybe we should go out. So your body's calling your mind's attention to what's going on. And at that point, you can just breathe and be there. It's like going to the edge of a yoga stretch. When you're at the edge of that stretch, there's a point where if I just breathe and focus, I can be here and be okay. But if I push myself further, I'm going to hurt myself. So that you can do the same with heat or cold. That you want to get that point of being comfortably uncomfortable. But you don't want to go to the point of being uncomfortably uncomfortable, because then you've gone too far and you might hurt yourself. So you need to be aware, go to that point of forced mindfulness. You need to be careful, because if it's too hot, you're going to burn yourself. If you put your hands on the sauna rocks, you're going to burn your hand. You also need to be aware of your blood vessels open up when you're hot. So if you stand up suddenly, all the blood's going to drain to your legs and you get faint, or you get dizzy, or you can pass out.
Yeah.
So just changes of your posture when you're really hot, you need to watch that. But it's sort of common sense, what I call common sense safety principles. And if you use those common sense safety principles, using heat is incredibly safe, and it's been used for thousands of years, if not millions of years, by humans and non-humans, to regulate our immunity. And it's one of the simplest, cheapest, and most effective health intervention on earth. And that's why I'm so passionate about bathing. That's why I'm so passionate about getting good water to people, and using that as the basis. Because if you're not having good water, what's the point of spending money on expensive supplements or probiotics or all this other stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah. Things right.
Thank you so much for painting that picture on viruses. It's so important, again, to get a perspective and get what they really are. To me, it seems like they're a catalyst for evolution. They're a catalyst for us to grow. That once we debunk them and we break them down, it's like we level up. It's like we get a gold coin, in a sense. You
can think about them like emails that cells send to themselves, send to each other. They're just like the messages that go across, and some messages get amplified, and it's like a really good song that they like to hear, so they make it and they sing it and they send it out. But it's like a form of communication. Viruses, they don't do the damage to our body. It's our body that does that damage by how we react to it. Just like the virus, the so-called virus, of SARS-CoV-2, if that's what you want to call it, isn't doing the damage. It's humans' reaction to the damage. It's the political and the government response that's doing all the damage. It's not the virus that's just doing what it does.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. Yeah, well, just as we wrap up here for the last 20 minutes, I'd love to get your perspective on where do you see the future? How do you see us evolving from this state? You know, I read something interesting on your blog that you were talking about as more people get into AI and virtual reality, also the opposite will happen, where we get deeper into health and nature and shamanic practices. But yeah, how do you see the future for humanity?
Well, I'm still trying to visualize a future that's more wonderful than I can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Um, and I think people are leaving the cities right now, and I've got there's a business I was supposed to start this year, and I put it on hold because of the pandemic, and it's called adventure bathing. And this is, and I've been doing this in New Zealand when I run retreats. We did in Bali as well, but in New Zealand at Maria Hot Springs, we do this thing called adventure bathing. It's where you can set up a hot tub, steam room, and a heated hammock in the middle of nature out of a backpack.
Oh, that sounds
so in New Zealand, we go. Oh, it's amazing, and I mean we've done this, and people say this is the best experience I've ever had in my life. Because what we do is we actually send staff up before we go on a hike. But you go on a 2 or 3 hour hike through the New Zealand bush, and it's like Narnia. It's like going through.
Well, that's what they, that's what they filmed a lot of the
where
Rings.
They filmed Narnia. Yeah, so it's like that. Everything's covered by moss, and it's just really safe. And it's not like Australia. There's no nasty biting insects, poisonous things. And there's some sandflies sometimes, but then you get to this location, it's either on the top of a mountain where a little tarn, like a little icy lake, or we go up to these river valleys, depending on the wind and how sheltered they are, where there's this freezing river next to this sort of riverbank, and then you get there and there's a hot tub, and there's a steam room, there's a heated hammock, and there's a gourmet lunch, and there's a fire, and you get given a bathrobe, and when there's a hot tub and it's 42 degrees in the hot tub, you don't mind jumping in the freezing river. Or you don't mind jumping in the freezing lake, and you do hot and cold, what I call extreme bathing, going from the hot to the cold. So you do a few rounds of hot and cold in the middle of nature, in the middle of nowhere, and it's this immersion in nature, this connection in nature that's really hard to describe because it's so wonderful. But the thing about that is it's much. I've done a lot of work with Mandarin Oriental, these like 6-star luxury hotels, but this experience we can do in nature out of a backpack is more luxurious than the most luxurious spa or hotel.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure.
And by doing that, you can open up all these wilderness areas as like ultimate wellness destinations. So suddenly the whole world becomes a health retreat. And if you give people the ability to have clean water and then to make that water either steam or ice, you can set up ice bars in the desert. You can set up steam rooms in the cold areas, and suddenly you've got paradise. So I see the whole world as being paradise, and it's also the course I've just launching is Waking Up to Wellness. It's my fundamentals course, and then I'm working on creating another course which is for practitioners to teach people how to take other people to do these experiences, and to create these super luxury experiences, just with a little bit of equipment, and the equipment's not expensive, and you can even hack that equipment, and create really high quality, high value experiences for people. And that I see that as a whole career path for millions and millions of people to be able to do this, which means they're out in nature, they're off their screens, they're healthy in their own life doing that, they're introducing this to other people, and suddenly, as I say, the whole world is our health retreat. So that's the world I'm working towards, where we have, imagine if we got a global consciousness, we have sort of artificial intelligence is like the left logical, rational hemisphere or part of thought. And we have humanity as sort of the mushy, organic, intuitive part of the consciousness. And AI and humans together create this whole global consciousness. And it's just like the bacteria in our guts. I'd like to believe that when we're healthy and happy, our bacteria are healthy and happy. So we can be like the bacteria in this global consciousness. And hopefully AI will think the world is much better with happy, healthy humans than sort of enslaved,
robotic people.
Or no humans. Yeah. So but I think we're going to hit a singularity. We're going to hit a point where we're going to tilt one way or the other. I still don't know which way. I think the negative is just as possible as the positive right now. But as I say, I choose to put all my eggs in the "it's going to be amazing" basket. And it's like you're running away from a stick and you're running towards the carrot. if you turn around and look at the stick, you're actually slowing yourself down.
Yes.
So the best thing to do is ignore the stick totally. Ignore that the stick's there. If you slow down, you're going to get whacked. But if you just see the carrot you want to go for and go full forward to the carrot, then that's the best thing you can possibly do to avoid the stick as well. So I know that, I'm an apocalyptimist, as you said. I know the apocalypse is here, but I'm really optimistic. And I think, the world's going to be more wonderful than we can possibly imagine. But I think it's really important that we start imagining it and we start sharing that imagination and that vision with each other. So yeah, that's my hope.
I love it and I resonate with it. And I can see, many things that I think about. I'm very into biodynamic farming, biomimicry, and biogeometry. So I can really see us, revolutionizing farming and even grocery stores and the shapes of buildings, and really going back to nature as to learn from and to create innovations based off of the laws out in nature. And even, hospitals should be like tents in a field where the grass and the breeze is just as important as the doctor, and the eagle in the sky, and everything within nature is going to play a role in that healing journey. So I'm absolutely on the train heading back into nature. Obviously, trying to integrate the modern with the, these new modern inventions with nature is the ultimate goal, to integrate them more. But I'm just on the ride with you to this optimistic and beautiful future of swinging consciousness in that direction of harmony, growth, love, and creating our heaven on earth. Mark, this has been a very, very fun and interesting conversation.
We've covered a lot of information. Yeah, it's great that I can talk about science and poetry in the same sort of conversation. I couldn't do that at university when I was teaching in university.
Absolutely, and I love hearing it. Mixing the art with the science is so beautiful. And I love to hear the poems; they resonate so deeply, and they just sound so beautiful. It's so cool to see you go through all the science to end up with art. Essentially, it's such a cool thing to come across. So yeah, this has been so amazing. Thank you for this exploration. Where can people find you, your work? You also have, obviously you're doing so many projects. You also have a water filtration coming out, yeah?
Yes. So I'm selling. I've got water filters now called Extreme Wellness Water. They can find me on extremewellness.co. drmarc.co is my personal page, and I've got all my research articles and some of my videos. I'd love to put podcasts up. I haven't put a lot of them up.
You're busy enough as it is.
Upload them. I need help uploading all that. And I do actually have someone helping me get out on the social media. So I'm on Facebook, and I don't really use Facebook and Instagram. I've got other people that help me do it. But occasionally I'll post on that. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all the the social channels.
Yeah.
But now I'm sort of in this protestival mode. We're creating this festival that's online that happen again at 8:00 tonight. We're going to just broadcast.
How do people tune into that?
It's just go to protestival.co.
Yep.
And then there's a play button, and you just press play, and there'll be a recorded. It's just a recorded playlist, and we're developing that, and we're trying to getting that synced, and we're going to grow that. So eventually protestival.co will be a whole online festival where there'll be resources and a meme gallery. We'll have legal information, links to documentaries and other sources of information. Right now we just want to raise the vibration, and especially in Melbourne where we really need it, and bring people together. And so just by playing music loud from your house at the same time, you can hear someone else down the street playing the same music. You're not alone. And we're playing sort of, I had to get an APRA license because we're playing traditional, mainstream songs. We're not even taking donations. We don't even have the ability to do that. We're just doing that because this is what we feel compelled to do and love to do. We still need help, and the more help we're getting, and we're getting amazing offers of help, but then we can actually expand what we're doing. And even our first broadcast today on September 11th, at 11:11 we started. We've had offers to reproduce what we're doing in Europe, in America. Melbourne being the festival capital of the world, we'd love that festival spirit. And festivals, I've been involved with the festival scene for a long time, but festivals are places where really diverse people come together and share and learn and celebrate. And that's I want the whole world to be a festival. I want the whole world to be a health retreat. I want all of the diversity of the world to come together and share and celebrate and learn together. It takes more than one spice to make a spicy dish, and we have this incredible dish of the planet Earth, and we can make the most incredible feast for everybody. And yeah, that's what I'm working towards. And as I say, this just sort of this sort of happened spontaneously, but it's like everything I've done in my life till now has prepared me for what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
it's
can't
all
tell you what
just
was
spilling
happening.
out at the
Yeah,
moment.
it is. And as long as it's joyous and as long as it's fun and it feeds me and nourishes me, then I'm happy.
That's so beautiful. How can people contact you if they feel like they can contribute to getting Pro Festival out there more?
There is a sign up form on the protestival.co,
Yep.
and people have already been great. And you can just put your name down and we'll stay in contact, or you can say, this is what I'd like to offer. I've got these skills or those skills, or I'd love to collect memes, or I'd love to help with getting messages out or doing some social media. And I mean, I've been to rainbow gatherings, which are these sort of really hippie gatherings where no one's paid. There's no organisation. There's really no organisation. Everyone just comes together and lives together for a month. And there's a saying there that if you see a job and you want it done, then do it.
Yeah.
But no one's compelling anyone to do anything. But it means every job that gets done is done with love. It's done with the intention of just contributing to the greater good. And it's amazing to see jobs that are really shitty jobs, digging toilet pits and stuff. People love doing it because they know they're contributing. And no one gets paid, but it's driven by love. It's driven by the benefit of all. And that's the spirit that we've created Protestival. And hopefully that spirit will maintain. I mean, we're not a political group. We're not asking for money. We want to put out good vibes and just raise the vibration of the whole planet and have it start in Melbourne, because we feel we are the most multicultural, most festive city. And that's a place where we can start, and that's where we live. So
yeah,
that's how we've started. That's the intention. You talk to me in a year's time, it might be something different. Hopefully it's a lot bigger and everyone would have heard about it, but let's see.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I have one final question for you, Mark. So in order to save our Mother Earth and humanity and continue to swing consciousness in the direction of positivity, growth, revitalization, balance, connection, love, and harmony, like I said, I believe it's all about transforming our personal internal world. I know we covered a lot today. What's just a final message, a thought, or a single action you have for myself and the audience on this deep transformational journey?
Follow the recipe for wellness.
Yeah.
Take the antidote to fear. Do the hacks to relax when it's emotional first aid. Don't panic. Your emotions, what you resonate at, affects everything that's happening right now. And you don't have to go out and physically change anything. You can do that by changing from within. So find the peace within. And if you meditate, when you've done your hot or cold and then you're relaxing and you're finding that balance point, then once you've had that peace within, you'll know what to do. You'll know what the next right thing to do is, and then just do the next right thing. And you don't have to ask other people's opinions. You have to be told, if it feels right to wear a mask, wear a mask. If it doesn't feel right, don't wear a mask. Don't compromise what feels right to you. And if you really don't know what's right, then you need to go further inside, because ultimately there's wisdom in you that's 4.5 billion years of water wisdom that's in all of us, and you can tap into that. So you tap into that 4.5 billion years of accumulated water wisdom, and you'll work out what the right thing to do. And I'm confident that everyone knows what that is, as long as they just care to look. Yeah,
for sure. And like you said in the beginning, if we are all gods, and God is everything, then we have some magnificent answers within if we can get to that place. Mark, I just want to thank you and honor you for the work you've done on yourself, for the impact you're having on the world. So much respect and love for everything you're doing, for writing these books, for doing these podcasts. Just immense honor and love going out to you and the role you're playing in the world.
Well, thank you too. We're all just playing the role we're meant to play, and you getting this word out, you creating this podcast, saves me doing it. People keep on saying, when are you going to do your own podcast? Oh, I don't really have, I'm doing all this other stuff. But it's so great for me just to be able to in my kitchen table, just be able to turn on this, and I can have a podcast, and you're going to do all the work getting it out there, and I just have to chat. So I honor and thank you, and let's see where we can take this. I think we're heading in really to a wonderful place.
Oh, for sure.
And the journey as well. So
yeah. No, I'm so happy to be on this ride with you. What a journey it is, eh?
And one day maybe I'll be able to go to Sydney again, and we can connect.
For
in person.
sure. We could just talk about water for the whole day.
Yeah.
Everybody, I just want to thank you immensely for listening to that conversation. I really hope it brought you a ton of value. I mean, we covered a lot. We covered it wide and we covered it deep. I mean, I could have kept talking to Mark for the rest of the day. I could talk to that man for days, for years without skipping a beat. Such a fun and awesome human being. But yeah, I really hope this brought you new insights, valuable insights, knowledge, and that you integrate the actionable steps. I mean, the poems are so easy to implement. Drinking clean water, bathing in clean water, cooking delicious food, hugging your loved ones, doing fun things. I mean, like Mark says, they're all free. It's not a product, and they're all free and simple things that you can do in your lifestyle to become extremely well. So yeah, I'm going to try and get Mark on very soon so we can just explore again. I love you guys. Let's keep transforming ourselves, changing the world, creating our heaven on earth, creating the most divine world that we possibly can. And that starts with our internal world. And let's keep on doing that. All right. I love you guys. Have a beautiful day. Peace.